Okay, good morning, all of you. Uh, Today is your lecture class for exception handling. In this week, you are going to deal with exception handling, how to use exception, and how to handle those exceptions in Java. You are going to do in this lecture class. First of all, what is exception and why you have to use exception handling? If you are writing program, then there are many cases where you will find certain mistake or error. For example, you have to do certain division tasks and you have done division by 0, then what will happen? Okay, in mathematics you will say that will give infinity, but that is not the proper value for that operation. That will create the error for you. Another one, in the previous classes you have created different forms, GUI forms. For example, in that login portal, login form that you have created, you haven't used any values in the text field and just use that for processing, then what will happen? It will again create the problem. Just remember, you have also studied file handling, where you will create a file and you'll do read on that file, write on that file. For example, file is missing, you are going to read a file, but the file is missed, that is not in the mentioned location, then what will happen? Again, that will give the error. That's why exceptions are those event, or you can say unexpected event, or the error, simply you can say, that will happen during the execution of the program. You are writing a program, you are executing that, but due to certain event, or you can say unexpected event, your execution will stop over there. You will find certain message over there, or your program will not run over there. That means those are said to be exception. That's why these are the unusual or unexpected happen, which will normally stops your current execution of the program. That's why Java provides a robust and the object oriented way for handling such cases where you find the error or you find the mistake and your program is not working, not giving any execution or not any output. In that case, how to handle such kind of situation? Then you have to use Java exceptional handling, like this. When an exceptional condition arises, then normally Java, what it will do, it will basically create an object for that exception. You have done certain mistake, you have done certain uh, event that will stop your execution of the program. In that case, what will happen is Java will create an object and then it will be thrown in the method that caused the error. That's why that is the part of exception handling. And basically, exception handling enables a program to deal with such exceptional situation. Just I have told, if such type of exception will occur, then what will happen? Your program will not properly run or even stops its execution. Then, if you are using exceptional handling, then you can prevent that one. That means your program will continuously run by showing certain message, or that will not stops your execution of the program. That's why exception handling is one of the important part of the programming, which will not create any problem or the execution. Like in many times you will see, for example, you are opening an website or you are using certain application in your mobile, you are executing that, and due to certain reason that will stop, that will show certain uh, message to you and it is not working. In that case, exception handling will be one of the good tool that will overcome such kind of situation and you can get your output. And in case of Java, exceptional handling is managed by 5 keywords. You are going to use those keywords for handling exception or such kind of error. First of all, try, then catch, then throw, throws, and finally. Now, first of all, what is those part? First of all, if you have certain statement that can create certain exception, then you are going to keep that in try block. That's why those program statement or the lines that you are going to monitor that may create exception, that doesn't mean always it will create exception. If exception is created or there is chances of creating exceptions, then those codes or the block you have to write in try block. Another one, if an exception occur within the try block, then it will be thrown to catch part. That means catch will identify what kind of exception or error that has been occur. That will be defined by catch, and you can do certain rational tasks over there. That means displaying certain message or other things you can do in the catch part. Now the next one is throw. Now, for example, exception or error occur, then to manually throw an exception, that means to manually by the user, we will identify the exception and will define the tasks. To manually do that, you have to use throw keyword. And any exception that is thrown out of a method, if a method can throw an exception, then that will be specified within the throws clause. And finally will contain the remaining code that you have to execute after that part. That means, for example, certain part you will write in try block, which can create the error or which can generate the exception, and the remaining those part of the code that you have to do, that you are going to write in the finally part. That's why five keyword try block to include the statements which can create the exception. Next one catch to identify the exception, and to identify or manually throw an exception you are going to use throw, and to specify what kind of exception that a method can throw, then you have to use throws clause, and finally will uh, contain the remaining block of code. Just look at the syntax over here, how you have to use. Basically, first of all, try. In try block you have to write like this. In try block you have to write the code to be monitored for the error. For example, if that can create any exception, then you have to write in try block. And next part is catch. For example, in your code you cannot say only one type of exception or the error may arise. There can be more exception or the error that may arise. That's why depending upon that you have to write multiple catches statement. Try will be normally single one, but in case of catches you can create many catch block like this. In this case you have to write like this: catch and exception type 1, what kind of exception there may occur, you have to write over there. And for that you are going to pass the object over here, and here you have to write certain exception handler. That means what you'll do, most of the cases in most of the cases you are going to display certain error messages. And in next one catch, again next type of exception type 2 may that may be object will be defined, and the remaining part will be for exception handler. Such kind of multiple catches statement you can write over there. And the last part is finally, where you are writing certain block of code to be executed after try block in. That means remaining part of the code block will be written over here. That's why try will contain those statements which may cause the problem at runtime, and normally that will be monitored by Java Virtual Machine at runtime. Basically, basically catch will declare an object of the appropriate execution class. That means what kind of exception type is there, that will be defined by the execution class, used for providing user friendly message by catching system error message. That means you can display different type of error messages. And the next one finally, which is normally optional part, you it is not compulsory that you have to write finally statement, but it is good habit to write the finally statement. And in this block this is optional, and it is executed after those blocks. Now just look at this example, what it is showing over there. It is using try, catch, and finally three keywords in the same example. This is a simple example in which you are dividing by the zero value. That's why first of all, public class program with exception, you are defining their void main, and you have defined two variables over there, integer values, int int a. Now in try block you have written the code. For example, divisor is 0, and you are finding a equal to certain value divided by d. If you are not using exception handling, what will happen, there will given an error message, error will be given and it will not execute the program. But in this case if you are doing this, then what will happen, you can see, look over there. For example, 42 by d, it will definitely create the exception over here. And in SOP, that is system.out println, what you are printing, this will not be printed. That means some message you are going to print over here. And catch. In catch, just I have told you before, you have to define the exception class. For example, dividing by 0, that is an arithmetic exception. That means whatever you are doing arithmetic problem or the error, that will be catched by arithmetic exception. Example is dividing by 0. In that case, arithmetic exception, you are going to give the name e object for that, and system.out.println divide by 0. That means if this case or this will create exception, then division by 0 will be displayed. And finally, the remaining code part will be written over here. In system.out.println, you have written what? Normal execution of the statement. That means first of all try will be executed. If it is not create any exception, then it will continue its execution. But if it is creating exception, in normal cases that will stop its execution of the program. But in this case, it will throw this error into catch part, and this message will be displayed, and now the remaining part will be displayed. I will demonstrate this one. For example, this is your code, the same code. For first of all try block is there, then catch. Now if you are going to run this program, what will happen? Like this, division by 0, and normal execution of the statement. That means what happened here? First of all, it goes to try block, there is divisor 0. Now you are going to divide this one. Now it will create exception. That's why this line will not be printed. That means whenever exception occur, then it will pass to catch block. Now arithmetic exception is there. That's why now it is going to display what? Division by 0 message over there. Now finally, now you can do remaining tasks. Normally in this case it is showing that normal execution of this statement. That's why it is showing. That means in this case, if you are using try, catch, and finally, what will happen? There will be exception that will occur. Now it is going to throw the exception in the catch part, and the remaining part will be done. Otherwise, if you are not using try and catch, what will happen? This will create an exception, this will create an error, and nothing will be executed. But if you use try, catch, and finally, the program will be completely executed like this. That's why exception handling will handle such kind of exception. Now it is not stopping its normal execution, it is completely executing its execution. That's why for that you have to use exception handling. Okay, I think you understood this case, this example. Now moving on to other part. First of all, try block you have seen. Basically it contains those statements that may create an exception. Catch block, that will handle an exception in certain rational manner, like you have displayed certain message over there. And throw block, manually throw an exception, that we have to manually write what we have to do in the exception case. Throws will specify when a particular method might throw certain type of exception. In that case, throws will be used. I'll show the example of throw and throws later. And finally, you have seen to execute of a block of code regardless. That means no matter exception occur or not occur, that will be executed. That will be written in finally block, and which is optional, that I have already told you before. Now you can relate those exception handling in this case. You can see over there. First of all, you have to try. That means you are trying certain code to be run, and if exception occur, you cannot do that, then catch will be done. Catch will be catch certain type of exception over there. And finally, you are performing the remaining tasks without any blockage or without any abruption. You can continue your program to be executed. And the next part is throw and throws. If an error occur, throw will manually define what to do with that. That's why throw is used in that case, to manually define what to do if exception occur. And throws will define what kind of particular exception that may occur. It will be defined. For example, in this cartoon or the picture, you can see here it is thrown to somewhere else, but that is not defined where it has been thrown. But in this case, where you are throwing, that is defined. That's why in throws you can define properly what kind of exception you can handle, and in throw you are manually defining where you have to throw or what you have to do in such cases. That's why that is the main difference between throw and throws. I'll show you that with example as well. Basically, exception, there you can find many its types. There is basically two types. One is check exception and the uncheck exception. If you see the built-in library file for that, there is defined throwable class. For that, there are two exception and the error are defined. Exception means generally what you are going to handle over there. Error means normally that is unrecoverable error. That means you cannot recover those error. But exception you can recover over there. That's why error, like some of the example given over there, like out of memory error. For example, you are running certain tasks but memory is not sufficient. What will happen? You cannot handle that. Then it will crash over there. That means it cannot execute over there. Similarly, stack overflow error. Over stack means that is also data structure where you are going to insert certain data. That is also not enough. That may also occur. But like this, in those kind of error, you cannot recover them. But exception can be recovered. There are two types of exception. One is check exception, and another one is unchecked exception. Basically, checked exception are the used for anticipated failure, and which are normally easy to recover. And unchecked exceptions are normally these are runtime error. That's why check exception are identified in compile time. These are the subclass of exception class which is already defined in Java, and unchecked exception are the runtime exceptions. And normally these are used for unanticipated failure, which recovery is not unlikely. Now the check exception. Just I have told those are the exception which are identified or checked at compile time. While you are compiling the program, then such kind of exception will be identified. And if some code within the method throws a check exception, then the method must either handle the exception or it can use the throws keyword. That means you can manually throw such kind of exception as well, or you can do that by using throws in the method as well. And some of the example you can see over there, like IO exception, input output exception, file not found exception, EOF, that is end of file exception. First of all, IO exception. IO means what? Input output. You have already seen in file handling that many kind of error may happen, like file not existing over there, or you have given the file which is not proper, like that. That means input output. That means file. It is related with input output operations such as invalid input. You are giving a file that is invalid. That may be a reason. Reading past the end of the file. For example, you are going to read the file which doesn't have any part, or you are crossing the end of the file. That may happen. And even opening a non-existing file. That means the file name you have given is not existed over here. That kind of error, IO exception. Another one, file not found exception. When an attempt to open the file denoted by specified path name has failed. That means path name is written properly, but it cannot find, or the system cannot find the file. In that case, file not found exception will be defined. And EOF, end of the file. These will signals that an end of the file. You know that end of the file represents that is the end of the file that doesn't contain over there, and your reading the file already reached to end of the file exception that may occur. That means those are the normally exceptions or the error that will happen during the input output. Then those will be identified in the compile time. Next, unchecked exception. Those are the exceptions that will be identified in the time of what? Execution. The simple example just I have given before. For example, you are dividing number by 0. Then what will happen? In the compile time, there is not an error because the both number are fine. But in case of execution, while executing, dividing by 0 will create an error. That means those are the exception which will identified at the time of runtime or at the time of execution. That's why those are said to be runtime exceptions as well. And these includes the bug or the logical error most of the time, or the improper use of certain APIs. And runtime exceptions are ignored at the time of compilation. In the time of compilation, those error or the exceptions will not be identified, but at runtime those exceptions will be identified. And there are many examples like this: arithmetic error, arithmetic exception, array index out of bound exception, illegal argument exception, negative array size exception, number format exception, and string index out of bound exceptions. There are other exceptions as well. You can find many unchecked exception, more than checked exceptions. First one, arithmetic exception. You have already seen certain arithmetic error you have done, like divide by 0, that kind of exception. Another, name itself tells, array index out of bound exception. That means you are defining array, but you are going to access the array index which is out of bound. Simple example is, for example, you have defined the size 10, but you are going to access 11 or 12 index, then it will be going to give the exception over there. That is array index out of bound exception. Another one, illegal argument. For example, you are using the method, you have to use the parameter to pass that, and you are using illegal argument or illegal parameter, then it will give such kind of exception. Another one, negative array size exception. That means array created with negative size. For example, array index will be, or the size will be normally in positive number, but you have defined negative size. That will also cause an error. And the next one, number format exception. You are defining invalid type of conversion from string to numeric format. For example, you are giving the string value and trying to convert into number. That may be another case. And another string index out of bound. You are going to attempt to index outside the bound of the string. You are going to access those values beyond the string length. Then it can give such kind of exception. That means these are some of the example of unchecked exception which will be identified during the runtime. And this example consists of use of both, that is throw, throws, and try and catch all. Now what it will do, you can check over there. First of all, we have defined the class demo. In that case, now we have defined static void throw method, another method we have defined over here, and we have now used here throws null pointer exception. Null pointer exception means those exceptions which will be arise due to value null. That means you need certain value, but the value is showing null. You know the meaning of null, that is empty. You need certain value for computation, but it is pointing to null. Then such kind of exception will be given by null pointer exception. You can find a number of exception there is already defined, and null pointer exception is one of them. And next is system.out.println. Inside throw method, you are displaying certain uh, text over there, and throw new null pointer exception demo, like this. If you are using throws, then it will manually, not manually, you can say whenever this method can create exception, this null pointer exception will be used. But throw can be used to manually throw from the user. We can manually, or we can customizably uh, write the code for this one. For example, here throw new, you know new will be used for the class creating the objects. Throw new null pointer exception, and where you are passing demo message, like this. And now public static void main is string args. Now you have used try through method, that means this method has been called over here. And next is catch. In case of catch, null pointer exception exp defined. This is the type of the exception, that is null pointer exception and exp. And in that case, you are displaying certain message. In this case, I have displayed method, displayed the message, the exception get card plus exp. That means certain value will be displayed. Now I'll show what it will display, like this. If you check this, if you run this and check the output, this message will be displayed inside throw method from this method, and the exception get card java dot lang dot null pointer exception demo from this part. Now how it has been executed, just check by yourself. First of all, you know, first of all you have to check void main. First of all, there is try. In try block, there is throw method. That means this method will be called from here. Now throw method will be executed. Now it will throws what? Null pointer exception. That means whenever this method is calling, then this exception will be called. And in system.out.println you have written what? Inside throw method. That's why first of all this line will be executed inside throw method. After that you have called throw new null pointer exception. That means this line will throw what? Demo value. That's why this try will be executed first. Now this will catch what? Null pointer exception. In null pointer exception, now it will display this one. The exception get cut. The exception get cut will be displayed. Now in case of exp, which was thrown from here, now it will display what? This one. Java.lang null pointer exception. That is the type of the exception that it is throwing. That is java.lang null pointer exception. It is throwing with the parameter what? Demo. That's why it will be also displayed over here. That means whatever you have thrown here manually, that will be catched by this line exp. That is this object. This object will catch whatever you have passed over here, and that will be displayed over here. Like that, manually you can define what you have to do if the exception will arise. That's why first of all you are writing here try, that will contains the coding part which can create the exception over there. Then next part is catch, which will be executed if certain type of exception will occur over there, and certain type of message you can display over there. And in case of this one throws, it will throw the exception whenever this method can create the exception. Throws will be used, and throw will be used if you have to manually perform certain tasks which will be done if certain type of exception occur. That's why these are the different cases or the different part or the component that can be used in exception handling. Now you have learned today that how exception occur and how you can use exception handling. And in GUI part, for example, I have already given to you. For example, you are handling certain data from the text field, and not any value or the no value is being passed from that text field. Then what you will do? You have to use exception handling. That means exception handling has the wide area of its uses. You can use exception handling whenever there is more chances of getting error or the mistakes in the code, and you are going to use such kind of exception handling in your coursework code as well. And for the remaining part of the exception handling and what are the different cases, for that you have to use exception handling. You are going to see that in your further tutorial and the lab session. And if you have any question, you can write your question in the Google Classroom, where I have uh, included or the posted the link for this lecture class, or you can ask in the tutorial as well as lab session. Thank you all of you. Thank you for today.